Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very special iSportconnect eMasterclass alongside our friends at Extreme E. I'm Ben Page from iSportconnect, and on behalf of everyone at iSportconnect and Extreme E, we are delighted to have you with us today, and we hope that you enjoy a really informative and enjoyable session here with us this afternoon. It's great to have Alejandro, Jean-Éric, Lucy, Rodrigo, and Orla with us. And before I hand over to Orla, I'll just give you a brief summary of iSportconnect for those of you who may not know us. At iSportconnect, we are the world's largest private sports business network, and you may know us from our community, our consultancy work, or through our events. During this difficult time, we're using these new online events as a way to keep our community as engaged and informed as possible. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and I will now leave you in some very capable hands. Orla, the floor, or the virtual floor, is all yours.
Thank you, Ben. Welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure to be part of this virtual event. May I start by saying, as a sports junkie, I join in all of you feeling the pain at the moment, missing our live sport. I can't wait for it to come back. But thank you, really, to everyone tuning in today for this session, for the creative role that you've all played within your industries to bring entertainment to the fans right now. I have to say, it's hugely appreciated. Personally, I find it inspiring and invigorating to see so much effort and focus concentrated on the fans. However, whilst we are feeling the challenges of this global crisis, we cannot forget that there is another global crisis which will far outlast this one, and that is, of course, the climate crisis. Now, you probably know tomorrow marks the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and its theme this year is climate action. Now, to mark this, iSportconnect and Extreme E have come together to host this discussion on sport as a platform in working towards a greener and more positive future for our environment. Many of you watching may already know all about Extreme E. For those who don't, allow me to give a brief run through. Created by the brains behind Formula E, this is a brand new electric off-road racing series due to launch in 2021, and it will take place in extreme and already damaged locations around the world. So we're talking about places like Greenland, the Amazon, Senegal, the deserts of Saudi Arabia. And the goals of this series are twofold. Firstly, the aim is to showcase the performance of electric racing technology and to be a test bed of innovation. And secondly, it is intended to shine a spotlight of awareness on the climate issues facing the planet's ecosystems, to promote the solutions that we need to be implementing. And that includes, of course, the role of electric vehicles and working towards a lower carbon future. So we'll hear more about the sustainability features and goals of the series throughout this session. They centralize on minimizing carbon footprint and impact where possible. But just as a brief guide, these include no on-site spectator crowds. If that's not ambitious, I don't know what is. Minimal crews on site, meaning that all live TV broadcasts will be edited in the UK, and all series vehicles and freight will be transported around the world on a floating hub. So this is a passenger and a cargo ship that's currently undergoing a refit, and that will minimize the need for air travel and the overall carbon footprint. And it can also then be used as a floating hub of scientific research. Now, I have been told to say that this is incredibly interesting. It's not, or at least interesting doesn't do it justice. This is, to my mind, the most exciting, the most ambitious project that I have come across in all of my years in sports journalism and sports broadcast. And I cannot wait to delve a little bit deeper into all of it with you today. Now, before we get started, I'll just explain how this event will run. This is my first ever eMasterclass. So if we encounter any technological difficulties, and please bear with us. That's the joy, of course, of watching us all live. But our panelists will all introduce themselves in just a few minutes' time. And then we will have a moderated panel discussion. And then to finish off, we've got a live Q&A. So please do get your questions in throughout the course of the session, and we will try to answer as many of them as we can at the end. But you can see all of your panelists on screen at the moment. I will now invite each of them to introduce themselves and give a little bit of an explainer as to how they got involved in all of this. First of all, it is the CEO and founder of Extreme E, Alejandro Agag. Alejandro, over to you. I'm afraid, Alejandro, I don't think we can hear you right now. Maybe you can click on the icon at the top of your screen. Oh no, we had Alejandro just a second ago when we trialed this earlier. Maybe someone can try to help Alejandro. Oh, he's going to come out and come back in again. Jean-Éric, maybe we'll go to you first then. Give us a bit of your background and why you got involved in all of this.
Can you hear me, first of all?
We can.
Yes.
Glory be.
Well, first of all, welcome to everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be on this talk. So how did I get involved? So first of all, I'm a racing driver. I raced for 3 years in Formula One in Red Bull, the Red Bull program, and then I left Formula One and I joined directly Formula E in its first season, and I joined after 3 races into the first season. And this is when I met Alejandro, and I directly saw, the importance of what Formula E was standing for, and really believed in him from the very first race I did. And as a matter of fact, I wanted to invest in the team from the very moment I stepped foot in this Formula E championship. This is what I've done with one of my investors. We were able to purchase and then investor in Tichita, my current team. And 2 summers ago, I remember when I won my first championship, we met with Alejandro in his office in London, and he explained me for 1 hour, his whole project of Extreme E, and I fell in love with the project. And at the end of our meeting, I left the office saying, I'm going to buy a team in Extreme E, and I'm going to have a team in Extreme E. So that's what we've done with my team of Veloce. Veloce is a company that is in esports, and we want it to be something new than just, motorsport guys buying into a franchise. We wanted to bring some blood to the championship, and that's what we've done. Also, we have Adrian Newey on board as our lead visionary, which is one of the greatest engineers of all time in Formula One. So this is how we came up to the idea of being involved in Extreme E.
Jean-Éric, it's not only wonderful to hear your background, but it's wonderful to hear that we can hear you. Thank you for that. Alejandro, can we hear you now?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Good. It happened also this morning in the virtual press conference, but it's a little glitch, and then if I go out and come back, it works.
Perfect.
Good. So anyway, well, hello again to everybody. It's great to meet all of you. We're over 300 connected right now in the call. And I'm Alejandro Agag. I'm the founder of Extreme E. I'm also the founder of Formula E. Extreme E, it's a little bit of a sequel of Formula E that goes even beyond the objectives of Formula E. The growth of Formula E has been great because it has a purpose, which is to promote electric cars and to, try to play a role, big or small, in the fight against city pollution, against climate change. I think Extreme E takes that, as its name says, to the extreme. We're going to go to these incredible locations which are under risk, under threat. Some of them are very damaged. And most importantly, we're going to try to fix them. We're going to try to have a legacy for them. So I think Extreme E is a really relevant project. It's also, we didn't know that there was going to be a pandemic and a virus when we designed Extreme E, but it's almost a virus-proof sport because we have no spectators and everybody goes in one ship, like you mentioned, and we can test everyone going in there. So we're ready. We will launch next year, and it's really, really exciting. It's the main project, my main occupation, and I would say my main dream right now is Extreme E.
Wonderful, Alejandro. Thank you. Lucy, you are Extreme E's ocean scientist. If you could introduce yourself and your reason for joining the sport, please. Oh, we've had the same issue, I'm afraid, Lucy. We've lost your sound as well. Perhaps if you do, Alejandro, out you go. Come back in again. Rodrigo, the floor is yours. Tell us about your background and what motivated you to get involved with Extreme E.
First, can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Yeah, okay, perfect. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure being part of this great project. Actually, start this conversation. We joined Formula E about 5 years ago. In terms, we are in the materials background, transforming the materials side to get better technology and also better performance to the environment, to the world, and to accelerate this. exports platform. We were not used to that, but we get amazed to that because can accelerate and the speed that you implement to the mass adoption. This was fantastic. We start this with Formula E because of the battery point of view, how the Niobium technology was and can be implemented to the battery and the future batteries. So that's why the starting point. So, and then about 2 years ago, Alejandro, at the closing season of Formula E, invited me for coffee and then said, I have a new project here. So let's talk a little bit about this new project. And it's going to be in an extreme environment. And then we need to prove the technology that works to this environment. And I see that Niobium can be very interesting to this. And then I love the idea. So I asked him, when can you come down here to Brazil to present to the board members and present the project and the technology, how it's going to be operate, and everybody love it. So we are already developing the chassis, some containers, also the future batteries. Last week, I have a call about fuel cells as well. So it is a great platform in our point of view to speed up the future technologies and then how material can help to accelerate this. Another very good point of all of these is everybody together, is a family, let's say strategic partners and family to develop the future technology. That is great for us to be part of this project.
The energy being invested in all of this already is just incredible. Lucy, you're back with us. I've never come across a sport that has an ocean advisor before. So what is your background? And I do think we can hear you because I heard that little laugh.
Okay, great. So afternoon, everyone, or morning, depending on where you are across the globe. Yes, so I'm Extreme E's ocean scientist. I'm a marine ecologist at University of Oxford and also principal scientist of an NGO called Nekton Foundation. So I was brought up in and on the water. My everyday life is about the ocean and the amazing opportunities that holds. So I spend a lot of my time leading ocean expeditions. At the moment, a lot of that is in the Indian Ocean. But I also, on those expeditions, get to go down in submersibles, down to the depths of the ocean that we can't visit any other way. So really amazing technologies. But of course, because the ocean is my passion, I also spend time playing on it as well and in it. So scuba diving when I can. And I also race traditional sailing boats, many of which are over 100 years old. So I think there's maybe some nice analogies of, really using high-end technology, but enjoying what history has provided us with as well. So my role really is to help as part of the science team to advise on some of the scientific research and some of the amazing legacy projects. And for me, these two aspects are incredibly important, as is the new lens that we will provide for some of the challenges that we've got across the planet right now. So it's a really new audience, and to be able to engage, have conversations, to be able to really learn from each other, and be able to take those skills and experience that we're all bringing to the table to try and address the challenges of climate change in a new and innovative way, I think is really exciting. And a lot of my work right now really seeks to understand the impact of human activities on the marine environment and really trying to understand how those patterns of biological life are changing because of us. So that's what I do, and that's hopefully what I can bring to the team, but also for what I want to get from the team as well, trying to understand how they look at the planet and how some of those solutions happen as part of this project.
Wonderful, Lucy. Thank you for that. Before we go any further into the nature of today's discussion, Alejandro, we've touched on it already, and it feels impossible to ignore. With the current corona crisis, given that you are a fledgling sport, you're getting off the ground, how have you dealt with that challenge in the establishment of Extreme E?
Well, Corona is obviously a big challenge for everyone. And Well, first of all, the first consequence is that we are doing this with our computers and with this platform instead of being in person. Everybody's at home. We have closed our offices in London. Everybody's working from home. But the project keeps going at full speed. We are committed to start next year. We are going to start next year. And, it came in a kind of, I'm not going to say a good moment, but it wasn't so bad in the moment of our history, because we had already raised all the capital. We had already deployed most of the capital. So if you look at the main assets that we have, which are the cars and the ship, the cars are basically 80% there, and the chassis and the boat, it's 90% there. So we just need 2 or 3 more months to get everything ready, and we have quite a bit of buffer. So assuming that we will be able to start working again on the ship within the next month or 2 months, and in the cars within the next also month or 2 months, everything is on time. We of course are looking every day at the news to see how the permissions for traveling and events and so on will evolve. But the ship in theory will leave UK with the cars on board end of this year or beginning of next year. We think by then the ship will be able to leave. We're hoping that we can do the events in the countries where we're going, and we can, like I said, we can contain very much in safety terms and in health terms the event. It's very few people that are involved, and there are no spectators, so it's almost a virus-proof sports in a way. If you like, I think, let me say that I think we need sport to come back as soon as possible. I think that football, for example, should come back as soon as possible, because if you want to keep people in their homes, you need to give them something to entertain. Otherwise, they will start going crazy and breaking the confinement and starting to get contagion again. So I think sports is going to play a very important social role. And I think we need to get it back on, even behind closed doors. You don't need public to have a football match, but you need 22 players and 1 referee and the people operating the cameras. And with that, you will give huge amount of relief to many millions of people. So sports, we're talking of the role of sports in climate change, but I think the role of sports during this COVID crisis, it's also going to be very important.
Yeah, it feels very fitting, really, to be talking about a sport with no spectators and minimal on-site presence, given the current situation. But Alejandro, you mentioned earlier that you had a press conference this morning, and that was to launch your scientific committee. I alluded to this earlier with Lucy. I've never come across a sport with a scientific committee before. What will the role be? How is that going to work?
The scientific committee that we announced this morning, it's a key part of the whole Extreme project. Because Extreme, of course, is a race, and it's hard. It's a race. It's a real race with super performant cars and great drivers. But it's a lot more than that. It's the whole legacy that we want to leave behind, and it's the whole awareness that we want to raise in those locations where we go that have a real problem. We're going to be in the Arctic. We want to talk about what's going on there, the melting of the ice cap. We're going to be in the Amazon rainforest. We want to talk about what's going there, the deforestation that is happening. We're going to go in the coastlines in Senegal. We wanted to talk about the problems that the oceans are facing with plastic pollutions and many other problems that the oceans are facing. And to tell that story, that's going to be a key role of our scientific panel and the scientists that are in that scientific committee, because they're going to be the ones that are going to help us raise the awareness, tell the story, but with a very real scientific base of what we're saying. We always wanted to base Extreme on science, and I think this scientific committee, that's why it's so important for us. We announced it this morning, is gonna play that role, and then it's gonna help us execute the legacy program that we want to leave behind after we leave those race locations.
And Lucy, you are a key member of that scientific committee. You have a long and distinguished career in science. I understand that sport and the world of motorsport are a bit of a new venture for you, but what is the role of science and for science in this collaboration?
Yeah, so I think, as I've already mentioned in my introduction, I'm passionate about the ocean, but not just about the ocean, right? It's about the planet for the future and leaving in a better state. But I think for us to be able to do that, we have to look at our own behaviors and our own responsibilities. So I think this is a really interesting and unique way of being able to highlight and pinpoint some of those aspects that we do as part of our everyday lives that maybe we can consider altering. And I think that's a really nice link with that aspect of using obviously electric vehicles and using the ship rather than flying. So there's some really nice analogies. Regards the science, obviously climate change is a huge aspect to us. You know, obviously we're all sitting here and our hearts go out to those across the planet who are being directly impacted by the virus. But there is no less people directly being impacted by climate change right now. We just don't necessarily hear those stories. We have whole nations of people that are looking at their nations in some decades, really not being there. You know, we're looking at some of our island communities. So I think this is really important for us to understand. It's not this thing that scientists are going to say is going to happen. It really is happening right now. And although it's happening at a relatively short, over a small amount over a long period of time, so we don't see that over our lifetimes. But if we had the benefits of going back over multiple generations, then our own families would tell us this. So I think for me, it's about, joining up technology, providing visibility of solutions and things we can do day to day, but also what are some of those solutions that business can provide. Because if we're telling people they have to change, we have to give them other options. We can't say you can't stop doing things, because that never works. We know that ourselves, right? You know, we're all finding it really hard to stay inside, and that's really easy in comparison with some of the other changes. So I think for me, those are really key. And as Alejandro's already said, those legacy projects, highlighting what's going on in communities right now. How are people helping themselves? What fantastic science is happening in those local places? And how can we cheerlead these? How can we provide illumination and highlight some of these local projects so they go from being local to actually being successful global solutions?
And Jean-Éric, let's move on to your role in all of this then. You're best known for competing in motorsport as a driver. Owning a team, one would imagine, is a very different path. What made you want to have a team in Extreme E? Why is the subject of climate change important for you personally?
I wanted to be sure to have a seat so I could race.
Well, that's good. We're bringing the sporting aspect into it, because it is a sport at the end of it, isn't it?
Well, you know, when I joined Formula E, I have to be fair with you, I had no idea, about the climate change. I knew everybody was talking about it, but I didn't really understand what it was all about. And joining Formula E really, and joining all the actions that Formula E we've done over the last few years really made me realize the importance of climate change and what we can do for that. And with Formula E, we have a very clear role by racing electric, meaning that we can switch the petrol car to electric cars, because it's definitely better for the environment in all perspective, in all points. And as Alejandro mentioned, with Extreme E, we're going much beyond this point, and we'll do more with that, with all the scientific on board on the boat. And I'm also eager to learn about this, because as a sportman, and with the fan base that we grow over the years, it's crazy. I mean, it's great to see all the people following you, taking an example. So we need to set an example, and by joining Extreme E and understanding more about all of this cause, we'll be able to set the example and to, exactly as as Lucy was mentioning, to explain people what we can do, because it's easy to say we need to change, but we need clear change, clear direction. And I think sportmen in general are always great personalities to show the example.
I think that's a really important voice and a really important point, Jean-Éric, because I think so many of us feel like we know we need to do something, but we don't know to what extent, we don't know what we can do. Rodrigo, to you, I saw you nodding quite enthusiastically when Lucy was talking about the options for business and needing options for business. What role does sustainability play in your business, and how will it benefit Extreme E?
Sure. A good point that I listened from Lucy, also Alejandro, and Jean-Éric Vergne as well. you integrate everything here. You integrate the technology, you integrate the community, you integrate new places in the world that need new solutions. But to do all these, you need to integrate a kind of physical world that is the material point of view. So we need to transform these to better and sustainable, more safer, a better performance that can reach this in this environment, bringing this solution, bringing this better performance, and also bring the fun that is the race and the motorsport as well. That is also behind that, the competition, and also the speed for new technology. So one point that I like very much about motorsport is this, because you can develop solutions in very fast speed. Another point that we see this is happening in a crisis. It's the first time in the world that I see everybody working for find solutions, improving, and going out when you live in a crisis as well. Motorsport also had this kind of speed and the spirit of finding solutions to bring these solutions to the world. So this is kind of one point that we like. Another point that we like, and we have been discussing quite a lot with Alejandro, it is you're gonna have this in a very far away places that you need to bring the legacy as well. How you can develop a legacy to this area, and then how you can bring like clean energy, how you can bring infrastructure, how you can bring mobility, a sustainable mobility to this area and to this place as well. So this is going to be a challenge of everybody, the partners, and also broader, because us in our ecosystem, for sure we're going to engage our partners to find solutions to this region, and then we can bring this to the mass adoption as well. So this kind of thing make us very interesting in this platform, to be involved in this platform, because we are really working the future solution. That's why we like very much to be part since the early beginning with Extreme E.
And Alejandra, the locations are key to this sport, but for people who are hearing about Extreme E for the first time, they might be concerned as to why you're going to places that are vulnerable, and concerned that you might do more harm than good. How do you ensure that's not the case? And why do you pick these specific locations to race in?
Well, of course, I got this question even from friends of mine when I was telling them about the project in the beginning. They said, "Are you sure you're going to take those big SUVs and you're going to go to this beautiful place and maybe you're going to damage it and so on?" I think what is very important here is to look at the reality, not at the perception. And I can understand the perception, but I've been to those places. And, you know, for example, in the Himalayas, we will race in a riverbed, dry riverbed of rocks. Rocks, a car cannot damage rocks. Maybe the rocks can damage the car, but not the opposite. It's basically impossible. So we have to look at the reality and the truth, not at the kind of faraway perception. But that's also one of the reasons why we have this scientific committee. We have the advisory of the scientists just to make sure that we are okay. So I remember we went with Peter Wadham, our Arctic expert, to Greenland, and we looked at all the places. And the place we saw, he had a really good analysis of it, and there is no chance we can damage it. It's just made of sand that has been deposited there when the ice cap retrieved. There is no life, there is no animals, there is nothing there that we can damage. But of course, if there is anything that can be damaged, we will not race there. So I think what's really, really important here is to look at the reality and to trust, of course, the scientific advice to make sure that we don't damage. And then once we are there, I think this will help a lot to raise the awareness. Why are we all here? Why are almost 400 people in this call? Because this is a car race, but we are talking about the environment. This is what we want to do. We want to connect a different audience and to raise awareness of what's going on in the Arctic, what's going on in the Amazon, in the Himalayas, in the desert. So the power of sports, we put it at the service of the fight against climate change and what's going on in those locations.
And Lucy, that's where you and the rest of the scientific committee are crucial. Alejandro mentions the reality and the perception. I guess for both of those, the scientific committee are absolutely fundamental to the success of this project.
Yeah, that's right. So each of us as experts, obviously are experts in our own field, but be able to collect information on those specific sites, we'll be needing to do things like independent environmental assessments. We'll be looking at the information that we get from those to really be able to assess, is this the best place? Is this the best scenario for this location? So that's going to be really key. But of course, what we have here is not just the opportunity of doing the races and all of the amazing technology that comes with the cars themselves, but to highlight those exact locations. So of course, the location choices are based on where minimal damage can be done, but also what other activities are going on in those areas? What are those impacts of climate change happening right now? So up in Greenland, it's going to be the reduction of the ice. When we have places, for example, in Senegal, then we're looking at sea level rise. And if we're able to provide some visibility on these aspects, that's going to be really key in the long term. So we're looking both at short-term impacts, but also with these legacy projects and the science, those long-term impacts as well.
And Jean-Éric, just to go back a little bit to what you were talking about earlier, I guess in that respect, this will be a bit of a journey for you as well. As you said, you weren't necessarily entirely aware of the need for action with climate action before you started with Formula E. The more that you learn with Extreme E, do you feel, given the following that you'll have as an athlete, do you feel that responsibility to pass that on to your fans, to the followers of the sport?
No, absolutely. I think, all the athletes, we all have this responsibility to set the example and to show the good that we can do as individuals. So one individual cannot make much. I mean, yeah, for sure he can do something, but one individual that has a lot of, big fan base community, a lot of following, will be able to, help those people have, the same action. And therefore, it's not only one people that will take action, but it will be thousands of millions of them. And I think I may not be able, I'm not Lewis Hamilton, I don't have 40 million followers, but certainly as many of us drivers, sportmen, we can all show the example to the world. And obviously, I was talking about Lewis Hamilton. I think he's a great example for what he's doing, for example, for the animal cause. Obviously, he cannot talk much about the climate change and electric vehicles because he races in Formula One. But I see no one stopping him, from doing the same thing as I do and buying an Extreme team, and therefore showing also the good that we can do through motorsport, and showing that electric vehicle is the future and that petrol is not anymore.
Jean-Éric, I love this. It's a call to action. Rodrigo, we're talking a lot about responsibility, but what about opportunity as well? From a partnerships perspective, what's the opportunity for using sport to get the message of sustainability across? And how do you plan to activate the partnership crucially?
The main goal for us, it is how to use motorsport to accelerate the future technology. So I can bring a case for you. In the old days, we used to develop a technology. It takes like 10 years. In a motorsport, I can do it in less than 1 year. It's something very interesting for business and for bringing solution to the world. So that is one of the points that we enjoy very much. And the other point it's kind of club family, everybody working together to find a solution. That is fantastic as well, because this you can speed up the development much, much faster than if you're doing by yourself alone at home. So that is the point that we find already, that the partnership and to engage the motorsport, fantastic. And also it is something that it is engaging the community and the society, because it is a little bit of fun, happiness. So you bring this to the community, you bring this to your country, you bring this to the society, to the employees, to the workers. So that is fantastic, because we are putting all together in a very fun way developing the future technologies and solutions for the world. That is one thing that makes us very happy to be part of it.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? Having fun, showing it can be fun. It's what gets people engaged fundamentally. Alejandro, you have now created 2 electric, climate-friendly sports products, Formula E and, of course, Extreme E. What has been your inspiration for the specialism as a whole?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I've created 2. I've created one for now. On creation, work in progress, although it's going very well. And of course, I didn't create Formula E on my own. I had the help of many, Jeff included, our partners and so on. But I think that everyone now can play a role. And I think this is almost like a chain. So, you know, probably at the beginning of the chain, you have maybe the activists or people who play a role in raising awareness. You know, people like Greta Thunberg, for example, who has had a huge impact in creating awareness. Many others. We've had Leonardo DiCaprio with us since the start in Formula E. These people create the right kind of, you know, state of alert. They ring the bell. The you know, like Greta was saying, the house is on fire. So that's the first step. And then once you have the whole world or a lot of the people in the world worried about that, that creates the right framework for the business to follow. But if the business doesn't follow, we will not achieve anything, because the only ones that can really make real change is the business, and the big corporations especially. I always say, when Shell is making all the energy from the sun, we will have succeeded, or Exxon, or, you know, those big energy companies that today use oil. And by the way, oil today is at negative prices. I think we are seeing incredible changes in the planet, and I think we have a unique opportunity that everything that is getting destroyed now, we can rebuild and reconstruct on a clean way. But anyway, that was kind of my thinking. So the business needs to follow the emergency situation that the planet is in. Right now, we have the right conditions. And I think that Formula E wouldn't have had the success it had 20 years ago, because nobody cared. Nobody would have wanted to listen to electric cars or to hear about the race of electric cars. Why? Instead, today, people are concerned, people are worried, they want to have a purpose, they want to support projects that have a purpose. And I cannot think of a project in sports with a bigger purpose right now than Extreme E.
It's very much of its time, and it feels more necessary, Lucy, than ever, especially as Alejandro says, we feel almost desperate for ways in which we can make a difference. How does the promotion of electric cars in particular and the fight against climate change work together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are on that trajectory now, so we do need to act right at this moment. We can't leave it for another generation. So what are those things that we can look at? We've already spoken about the innovation. Obviously, we've got people on the panel here that, you know, that is their business. So looking at those ways of being able to innovate, both to come up with solutions, but for us also to tell the story, to be able to make it connect with each one of us, because we only want to do something about something we care about. You know, if we don't care, we won't do anything. And we've seen that time and time again. So I think that visibility aspect is equally as important as the innovation. And it's not just the story of the cars. Of course, there are some amazing narratives to tell around that. But when we can promote our local communities, we can promote what they can tell us, that knowledge exchange aspect, that networking that we can provide as scientists and industry across all of our nations we're working with, across all of our teams, across all of the partners. That's a huge number of people that we have direct influence on. So if each of us take that on board and try and communicate that to our individual networks, we can have a real impact. And I think that is really key. So coming together, interdisciplinary, multiple nations, that's going to be the only way we're going to be able to be successful in the future, and actually also to be successful in these sorts of projects.
Engagement is absolutely key, isn't it? And I can tell you all from reading the questions and the comments that are coming in my sidebar here, you've managed to engage everyone listening anyway, so that's a good start. I want to give those watching an opportunity to have their say as well. We've had some fantastic questions coming in. I'm going to start with Giorgio Giovetti, and this is more of a sporting question than a science question, but very important. Spectators, he says, are a staple of most sports. Do you think it's a model other sports owners might pursue currently? And that feels incredibly pertinent. As you said, Alejandro, we're all having to do this remotely. Remote sports watching is a thing these days. A point which Shreyas also raised, as well as Giorgio, how will you keep fans engaged from home? Will EE use FanBoost to encourage virtual fan participation? So I'm going to ask Alejandro you that first. There's a smile and a nod there.
Yes, well, I got this question this morning also. We got this question, Lucy, in the press conference. Extreme E has no spectators, and they were asking me, do you think the future of sports is with no spectators? And my answer was, I really hope not.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we can go back to football stadiums. I hope we can go back to, because if we cannot go back to football stadiums, it means we will not be able to go back to concerts, for example, or we will not be able to go back to so many events where we want to be together with people. I think Extreme E is an exception, but in these times, I think in a short term, or at least for a few months, or hopefully only for a few months, maybe even for a year or two, sports will be without the spectators. In terms of how we are going to engage people from home, Extreme E is special because there is no spectators from the start. We will definitely come up with what we've done also in Formula E, ways for the spectators to be involved. Also, there is a very important way we want to engage with fans. We want to engage our fans in our legacy program. Today, for example, we announced that we're going to reforest and we're going to fund the reforesting of 100 hectares of rainforest next year. That's only the beginning. But we're going to invite the fans to join the effort. So if a fan wants to reforest 1 hectare together with us, he will be able to do that. So it's going to be engagement not only on the sports side, which is very important, but also on the legacy side, which I think is even more important. And really more and more people are really trying, like you said before, to find ways to get involved. So I think that's a good way to engage the fans. But I hope I can get soon to a football stadium to go a football match.
Don't we all? I mean, community is such an important part of sport. It's really interesting, Alejandro, that you say that this community will be involved not just in the sport, but in the entire project. I guess that's what it's all about. That's why I say it. I find it so ambitious and exciting as a project. Lucy, we've got a question for Mitch from you. What will success look like from your perspective on this?
Great. Yes. Well, obviously, that is a question that I asked myself when I heard about this project, right? What is it that personally I want to see change in the world out of this project? Because for me, as a scientist and someone who I said is passionate about the planet and doing things for the future, that is a real important aspect for me to be involved in. So I think for me, it's really threefold. Success to me looks like new data from science. And of course, I'm a scientist, so I'm going to say that. But not just new data, providing information from that data to make sure that we can turn that into something usable, something that's tangible so that it goes on to have successful impacts. The second aspect is really looking at our future generations of our scientists and our planet ambassadors for the future. Undergoing a lot of these projects, we can both provide visibility, but also be able to look at some opportunities for training people and for knowledge exchange. So I think this is equally important. These are amazing opportunities to be able to provide. And thirdly, it's really supporting some of these fantastic efforts of the local communities. Some of these innovations and science research aspects are really key. So providing an opportunity to highlight those is going to, again, be really successful.
Jean-Éric, we've got a question for you from Will Grieveson. You mentioned Lewis Hamilton and his animal conservation work, but who in your fellow athlete community, Will wants to know, do you find inspiring in using their platform for sustainability? Any examples that you have really of using influence for good in that way?
Well, I think the best one beside Lewis is my competitor. So we can be enemies on track, but I really highly respect what he's done so far, and it's Lucas Di Grassi. I think he's probably the first driver that really engaged Formula E and follow the path of Alejandro. They've been working together from the beginning of Formula E, and I think he's a great example of an athlete that is trying to educate all of his fans about electric vehicle and about electric mobility in the cities. And to reply your question, I think he's the number one guy that come up in my mind.
Excellent. We have a question for Rodrigo.
In Extreme, sorry.
Sorry, what was that, Jean-Éric?
No, I was saying that I'm pretty sure that he would be in some way involved as well in Extreme because it's a project that is, I think, even more important than Formula E in terms of global, climate change.
Absolutely. Well, it's really exciting to see the names that are coming on board already and the expertise from so many different backgrounds. I do want to ask a question to Rodrigo, and this is one for you maybe as well, Alejandro. It's from Kit Chapman. What are the main science or tech challenges in an Extreme E car that haven't been explored, and how can they impact then outside sport as well? Because again, that's got to be key, doesn't it? We talk about this being a test bed and a hotbed for innovation.
I will start, Alejandro, and then I pass to you, okay? I think one of the main challenges that we have been working on is the challenge of the concept as well. It is about the fast charging as well. So how we can charge an electric car in a few minutes or even seconds. Someone asked us this. This is kind of changing the mindset as well of everything. So this is one thing that I already share with Alejandro and the tech people from Extreme E, because we have been working on this quite a long time, and Niobium can help on this of the fast charging solution, because you can reduce the weight, you can reduce the cost of the battery, and you can bring the more sustainable solution. Another point is all the recycle cycle about the battery and the materials that you use. This is going to be also an important challenge. Putting together with the lifespan of the battery. So now our batteries, we are talking about batteries that can take more than 20 years or up to 30 years. So they're gonna take a long life, the usage that can start in a car, can move to construction, or can move to other applications. And even after that, you can have a return of reuse the material. This is kind of thing that we are working, discussing in a project like Extreme E. So this is fantastic. Bring fast charging as a solution that is already can be implemented, and then how you can increase the life of the battery and reuse. I think this is an important case that I brought. We have other cases as well, but I think this is going to be very important for accelerate the electrification as well.
Yeah, it's crucial for a wider audience, isn't it? A wider driving public. Alejandro, what would you add to that?
I would add that, of course, it's a platform that allows electric cars to race in every condition, in different climates, in different temperatures. We're going to be in the ice. We're going to be extreme heat. So we will have a platform to test. It's like a laboratory of technology, especially for batteries, because batteries are the ones that go under more stress with different temperatures, to improve that battery technology, which then can be applied on normal cars and improve the normal cars for its general adoption by the public. But another element which is interesting, it's we're taking these cars around the world to these really remote locations where there is no electricity. So how we are going to produce the electricity in a clean way to charge these cars far away in the north, in the jungle, in the desert. And we're looking at many different solutions, very advanced technologies, looking into hydrogen. So we're going to produce the energy with hydrogen to charge the cars, the batteries of the cars. So the cars are going to be battery-powered cars, but they're going to be charged with hydrogen fuel cells. Having said that, hydrogen, it's a tricky solution, because if the hydrogen is clean, comes from renewable energy, it's very good. But if the hydrogen comes from, the energy you get to produce the hydrogen comes from a coal plant, you're actually emitting 8 times the amount of CO2 to produce a particular unit of hydrogen than the energy you get from that specific unit of hydrogen. So we will use this hydrogen. It will be clean hydrogen. And it's another technology challenge, but I think we can learn a lot of lessons from that to then apply to the infrastructure that is needed for electric cars all over the world.
We had a question in from Torben Olsen on that very subject. So Torben, I hope that answers your question sufficiently. Alejandro, a question from Tom Gallagher. What is next in the development journey of Extreme E? We saw Andretti joined last week. What's next on the horizon that you can tell us?
So we have signed another team that I have the contract here already signed. Team number 7. We will announce that team shortly. I think in 1 or 2 weeks, as we space our announcements. We have a few things coming up in the pipeline.
Tease.
We need teams, so we need to announce another one. So we will announce 8 teams, and then we will have the full grid because we're going to do the first season with 8 teams, and then we need to finish the ship. Then we need to do the first test. So we will do a race simulation with all the teams. Teams need to sign their drivers, obviously. Then once we have that, around October, November, we will do the tests of the cars, the race simulation. We will test also the broadcasting. We are producing incredible visuals that will go on display. It's going to be like watching science fiction when you watch an Extreme E race. It's going to be like watching Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever. It's going to be really, really very, very technology-driven broadcasting. So we're developing all that. And then we will put everything on the Santa Elena, which is being finished, our ship, our base, all the cars, and the ship will leave the port in the UK to go down to Dakar to do the first race. That's
excellent. You thought I said teams, Alejandro. I said tease. You're teasing us with talk of this contract lying beside you, not telling us who signed it. But I love it. I love it. Lucy, we have a question for you from Torrent Dorsey of CLGP. She has asked, can you comment on the use of, excuse my pronunciation, Lidar technology and its potential for use for the analysis of the rise of oceans and water temperature?
Yeah, so that's a really specific technology that potentially could be used. At the moment, both our science and our legacy programs are in development. So we were able to announce one today, which was this reforestation that Alejandro was talking about earlier. But as I said, really, as us as a scientific committee, our main focus is to make sure that we can be able to provide advice on projects that are going to show success. So what we need to do that is we need to have a set of metrics that we can measure each project beside, and that will provide visibility for everyone to be able to look at those projects and understand both why they were chosen, but also what came out of the projects. So yes, I mean, we've all got loads of stuff to be able to think about, loads of different technologies. And I think that working with such a high-end tech group of individuals, I'm hoping that we can really think about new innovations for technology that's out there and just new ways of using things, both for solutions and for data collection. So I think there's some really interesting aspects for us to consider.
And I guess new ways of sharing it with a wider public as well. And that's what the sporting element of it is all about, and trying to reach a new audience, which is key. We've got a question for you, Rodrigo, from Eric Jacomb, asking, will all teams have the same technology and components in the car?
For the season 1, we have been working lighter and safer chassis. That every car is going to be implemented in the lighter and safer chassis. That is going to be for the season 1. We have been discussing as well that all the transportation is in a lightweight container that is going to be in the ship. We have every day or every week discussion in new opportunities. For example, the future battery is one of the challenges and the goals. Also, the hydrogen cells that Alejandro mentioned. So future technologies to be implemented in the ship as well. So, but the season 1 is going to be the same chassis, lighter and safer chassis that use a high-strength steel containing niobium. That is going to be the same. I guess all the cars is going to be the same, and then Alejandro, in other ways as well, Alejandro can tell more. But I guess for the season 1, everything is going to be the same.
Yes. Season 1, everything will be the same. Season 2, we will allow changes on the bodywork, only the external look of the car. And in season 3, we will allow change of the motor, only the motor, the electric motor. So the battery will be common for everyone. It's a very similar model to the Formula E model, where manufacturers, when they come, normally what happens is, like in Formula E, independent teams come on a first wave, and then manufacturers, big car manufacturers, join in season 2 or season 3. When they come, they will want to have some of their own technology in the cars. We will allow motors to be the ones that the manufacturers make, but everything else will be standard, will be spec, and will be also with chassis made with our niobium material, which is lighter. So we will apply all these technologies together, but for everybody the same. So we keep the cost control of the championship.
Excellent. Jean-Éric, a question for you from Dirtfish. You've answered part of it already. What inspired your decision to enter your own team in Extreme E? You said it was to guarantee a seat, which I find refreshingly honest. But he wants to know, have you already started to incorporate off-road expertise into Veloce?
Well, first of all, I don't have any off-road expertise. I've only single-seater cars in my life. So although I would love to be racing, I'm doing this to compete and to win. So when you are a team owner, you want the driver to perform and you want the driver to win races and your engineers to performing well as well. So I'm definitely going to test the car. But if I feel that I'm not quick enough and I cannot compete for the win, I will not take part of it and I will hire the best possible driver so that we can win.
It is a competition after all, and we have had so many incredible questions coming in and such fantastic engagement that I'm going to keep you all a little bit longer than our allotted time, if that's okay with everyone, just so everyone can enjoy this conversation a little bit longer. Alejandro, a question from Oliver Ryman asking, taking Formula E as an example, we could see there was a certain evolution concept ready. Now, you've slightly touched on it there, but what can we expect from Extreme E in 3 to 5 years' time, for example?
So in terms of the technology evolution, the Extreme E evolution is going to go quite in parallel with the Formula E evolution. This means that the battery technology, we are going to actually take advantage of the advances that are being done in Formula E. The budgets in Formula E are huge, or quite large, not huge. They could be bigger. Obviously, there's always we can improve, and we can go for more in battery technology, but it's going really, really far. And the purpose of Formula E is to develop technologies that then can be used by others. Well, we're going to be one of the others. We're going to enjoy the progress being made. It's useless to do two progresses in parallel. We're going to take whatever is Formula E is developing, which is fantastic, and use it in Extreme E. But we're going to adapt it for off-road. This is, in my view, the future of the off-road sport. And we're going to take that technology. The batteries need to behave slightly different on an off-road car than on a single-seater racing car. Obviously, the whole engineering of the system, this is four-wheel drive cars, it's not two-wheel drive cars, so there will be some technology specificities, but we are basically going to be getting a free ride on Formula E technology development, probably.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense, doesn't it? You've already mentioned the Santa Elena, and this is probably a question for Lucy and for Alejandro. Darren Lythe would like to know, can the Santa Elena ship itself be used as a test bed for sustainable technologies, and how will that work?
Well, let me start. Lucy, you go after. I will just say one thing. We were discussing with our team and with some very cool brand advisors we have, what are we going to do with Santa Elena? Because obviously Santa Elena, it's a ship and it's using fuel and it's polluting, and that's a fact. And well, we cannot avoid that. That's what it is. There are many oceanographic ships in the world. Greenpeace is using its own ships. I mean, all the ships are powered on the same way. But we came up with this slogan that will summarize kind of our spirit. We want to put a big sticker on the side of Santa Elena that says, not electric yet. So means that our ambition is also to research and to experiment of new ways to power ships. And other people are doing it. Maybe someday we can install that in the Santa Elena. Today is not possible. having said that, we will minimize as much as we can the carbon footprint of Santa Elena. We have changed the type of fuel. We are installing new filters in the exhaust pipes. We are going to have processes to take care of all the waste in Santa Elena in a certain way, and so on and so forth. But one day, hopefully, we can even make it zero emissions.
Lucy?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. Alejandro has covered an amazing amount there. But I've just like to really emphasize that Santa Helena itself is like this opportunity for experiments, to really be able to explore what's out there now. But of course, that's going to be really different in a year's time. So how are those technologies going to be incorporated? And that's really helpful, right? Because the majority of the shipping fleet that's out there are between 15 and 30 years old. So actually being able to understand and retrofit a vessel is really key in being able to get a much more sustainable shipping fleet in general.
This is a question that maybe allows you to talk a bit about how this sport is going to be packaged, essentially, and how you're going to use this sport for the wider message. Megan Evans Sorini would like to know, people watching will be interested in the environment and racing. How will you help get the environmental message across to a broader audience? I mean, it's not just about the racing itself. It's not just about watching electric cars, off-road racing in extreme locations. You're going to be explaining the environmental issues behind all of this as well, aren't you, Alejandro?
Absolutely, and this is the key, really, of the whole project, to tell this story. So we will have a part of the content, which is the live broadcasting of the race, which is of course the sport. And I have to say, we are so positively surprised by the interest of many televisions around the world, many broadcasters, to show this race. We have already announced a few of our partners, like Fox in the US, like Mediaset in Italy, but we have many others that we are already currently in discussions and very close to signing agreements with to broadcast this. But then we're going to have also the second part of our content is the documentaries. And we're going to produce these documentaries that are going to go much deeper into the specific challenges that every ecosystem where we go is facing, from the problems with the melting in the ice cap in the Arctic, to deforestation in the Amazon, to the oceans, the situation in the oceans, and in the oceans even more, because we can do research as we go with the ship. And then we can do research when we are in location, for example, in Senegal or in other places, to the situation in the glaciers, in the mountains, in the Himalayas, and so on and so forth. So we'll have these documentaries that will be a mix between a little bit of racing, a little bit of those characters, but a lot of the situation in the ecosystems and the threat and the pressure they're in because of climate change.
It's a whole global package, isn't it? Jean-Éric, you've touched already on, whether other global athletes will come to this project, but how would you encourage fellow global athletes to work on their legacy in the area of climate change and sustainability? That's a question from Jess Connor.
Well, it's a very simple and straightforward answer. As a sportsman, the reason why you want to be competitive and to win championships is to be remembered as the best one in your sport and to write the history of your sport. But today, thanks to Formula E, I realized that you can do more than just be the best one in your sport. You can write history, but you can also leave a legacy for the younger generation. And I think that's a way of being remembered, not as only being the best one, but also as being the guy that really pushed all the other athletes and a community of fans to change their way of thinking and to change their habits. And to me, to leave this positive note behind your career, and after your career is over, I think it's what we should all be aiming for.
Who doesn't want to write history, eh? A very important question, two similar questions actually for, I imagine, a lot of people watching from a business perspective. Philip and Lucy both asked, given that there will be no live audience, what options are there for sponsors to support and activate with this initiative and championship? I think that's very important, isn't it? Maybe Rodrigo and Alejandro for that one.
This is can you start, Alejandro? I can move.
Well, I mean, of course. sponsors, when they associate with the sport, they have been changing more and more what they expect from the association with the sport. And today, the association is more and more based on shared values, is more and more based on why they can communicate themselves. Because in the digital era, it's everyone communicates their own messages. You have multiple channels where you can communicate your own message, but you need to have a message to communicate. That's why it's more and more important to have a common sense, like something real that you're doing with the platform you associate with. For example, Niobium. Niobium is making the chassis of our cars. There is a real story to tell there. They are part of what we're doing. Other companies that join us or will join us in the future, they could be part of the legacy program. They will be a real link with something real that they could contribute to. And then once you have a real story, then you can build your communication strategy on that story, and you can then get a return from your investment in the sport. So I think there is a new way. Of course, the sponsors want the sport to be popular and to be seen for as many people as possible, but that we can achieve with television. If you think about it on a sport that we all know very well, Formula One, a lot of people go to see a race. Maybe 100,000 people go to see a race, but 100 million watch it on television. So the numbers are so different that if you take out the 100,000 that were there, you still have 99,900,000 that were watching on television.
Yeah, makes sense. And just adding what you said, for us, we use also the sponsorship to invest, to develop technology and to promote technology. So you mentioned very important things, sharing values and also bringing the real showcase or real history behind that. So that is the point that for us is very, very keen. That's why we like the Formula E project and also the Extreme project, because you bring this kind of true value behind that. One point is also on the education that is very nice, because a lot of new technology or new challenges is coming out. So how to engage the partners, how to engage the community, how to engage the society to make it easier that you understand these challenges and also to explain it. We do this already with our partners, and always we like to increase this awareness to bring new solutions and make it open to the people engage and help us to accelerate this. So that's why I believe this kind of sponsorship make it real and true history behind it.
What's really striking, I should say to all of you panelists, with all the questions coming in, is that there's so much recognition of the novelty of what you're trying to do. And I guess that the fact that we feel that we're at a crossroads, really, and that this new project is launching from that crossroads. And Harriet Millard has asked, you've been working on the project for a long time and have no doubt learned many lessons already. What one piece of advice would you give to other sports who are at the beginning of their journey of trying to be more sustainable? It's fascinating to get a question on lessons when you haven't even launched yet. It just shows what you're demonstrating in terms of the amount of work that's gone into this. Maybe Lucy, you can answer that one first.
Yeah, well, I think the main answer needs to come from Alejandro, as it's his brainchild, and he's been the driving force behind it. But I think something to think about is that we all have our own realities every day, and everybody has a different reality. So I think that's something that I have really seen working with the Extreme E team, is they really recognize that, and the opportunities of putting people together who have different realities is a really unique and powerful aspect that I have really valued.
Yeah, Alejandro, final word maybe from you.
I completely agree with Lucy. I think the lesson we have learned over these 2 years is that it pays to be just open and based in reality. And it doesn't have any point to try to hide your, let's say, not so good points. I mean, if you have a ship, you just have to be open about it. We have a ship and we have some emissions, but then you put on the table all the solutions that you're going to, put in place to try to minimize that. But you have to be very, very open and very based on reality. and also you have to communicate that and to be very transparent. And in everything we do, I think we will be very, we will stick to that principle. We are going to these locations, which are locations that people care about. Even if someone has never been to the Amazon, people care about the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were listening to this news a few months ago of the Amazon burning, everybody was feeling kind of hurt about it, even if they've never been there. So we have to be transparent. We have to take those places with care, but we have to be very, very open on what we do. And I think as long as we are honest, I think the word is honesty, and based on real facts, that's my obsession. Listen to the reality. That's why I'm so keen on the science behind it. You have to be based on reality and on science, not on perceptions, which sometimes are not so accurate.
Fronting up to those challenges is absolutely key, but I would say very refreshing as someone coming to it from my point of view. I would like to say just thank you very much, all of you, for taking the time. It has not only been a pleasure, it has been a fascinating experience for me to listen to all of your expertise this afternoon. We've had so many questions for you all. We've been overwhelmed, inundated, and we don't want to let those questions go unanswered. So we will hand them over to iSportconnect so that they can conduct a follow-up Q&A. We want to get as many of them answered as possible. I think it's a record level of engagement, which is wonderful. But Jean-Éric, Rodrigo, Alejandro, Lucy, thank you so much indeed for your time. We wish you the best of luck. The success of this project, I think, is something that's in everyone's best interest. So good luck with it. Happy Earth Day, and here's to a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.